Mm. Okay, Lucid Spark. Lucid Spark. Oh boy. Oh wow. Try. Okay, AWS CLI. This is a command line utility for interacting with AWS services. It's a command line utility for interacting with AWS services. Now the question will come, how do you use AWS CLI? Firstly, you should get AWS CLI installed. That is the first approach. You need to install AWS CLI. All right. And we're going to show us how to do it. It's very straightforward and simple. Secondly, on the AWS console, create an AWS access key for the intended user to authenticate with. On the AWS console, create an AWS access key for the intended user to authenticate with. All right. So this part is very, very important, especially when you need to integrate AWS services with external services. All right. So you do that through AWS Access. All right. AWS Access. So I'm going to show us. After that, then you should configure your access keys using AWS CLI. After then, you should be authenticated towards AWS tenants. All right. So it's very straightforward, simple, guys. Simple. Okay. So let's just get started. So first and foremost, AWS CLI is a command utility, line of the utility for interacting with AWS services. How do you use this service, this utility? First, you need to install it. All right. So let me go to instance. Where's the instance? Here's the instance instance that I launched. Connect SSH client. Copy this. Come over here. All right. Paste and voila. Now, note AWS Amazon Linux 2 comes pre-installed AWS CLI version 1. Listen, guys. All AMIs, all Amazon Linux 2, all Amazon Linux, all Amazon Linux 2 comes pre-installed with AWS CLI version 1. All right. So now let's go back now. Let me show you something. Now, when you come here to launch an instance, okay, at the point of choosing this is your Amazon Linux. Now, your AMI, you can see that we have two AMI. We have a lot of AMIs, but we have one AMI called Amazon Linux 2023. 2023. This guy does not have CLI. It has CLI though. It has Amazon Linux CLI, but it's version 1. On that guy, you cannot upgrade. You cannot upgrade to AWS CLI version 2. So I'm telling you this so that I don't make the mistake of going to spin up Amazon Linux 2023. Make sure this should be your go-to AMI, Amazon Linux 2. All right. All right. Great. So this should be your Amazon Linux 2. This is fresh. It is just raw. Okay. Great. Let's go back. Note, AWS Amazon Linux 2 comes pre-installed with AWS CLI version 1. All right. Now let's check. Let's check. Now, this is my AWS. I'll say AWS version. I don't know, that was that command again. Is it dash version? Now, to check the version of AWS CLI, I'm going to run this command AWS space dash version. Also note, aside Amazon Linux, aside Amazon Linux 2, all other Linux distribution aside Amazon Linux 2, you would install aside AWS CLI, come on. AWS CLI does not come. All right. AWS CLI does not come pre-installed in all other Linux distributions. In all other Linux distributions. Aside Amazon Linux 2, all other Linux distributions does not come with what? AWS CLI. You want to coin it like that. All right. Aside this guy, all other Linux distributions, all other Linux distributions does not come pre-install, does not come with AWS CLI pre-installed. So it means that if I create an Ubuntu VM, I create a Mac, I create whatever I want to create, a Red Hat Enterprise Linux, I create CentOS. In as much as it is not Amazon Linux 2 or Amazon Linux 2023, you won't get AWS CLI on it. You may have to install it manually. All right, you may have to install it. Okay, great. Now, these are what I needed to tell us. Now, let's get it installed. So what I will do, I'll go to what Google. I'll say AWS CLI install. That's what you type. AWS CLI install. You will see this first link. Open that first link. Right click, open a new tab. Let's go there. So you can see what I have. What I have here, where's that guy? Is version 1, right? Say AWS CLI 1.18, Python, the Python version itself is even 2.7, blah, 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 blah. Now let's check the documentation. Install or update the latest version of the what? AWS CLI. Okay, important notice. AWS CLI version 1 and 2 use the same AWS command name. If you previously installed AWS CLI version 1, see how to migrate from version 1 to version 2. It's always advisable you move from V1 to V2. All right. AWS CLI install and updates, which is this first link here. Okay. Now you have different environment, different platform. You have installation for Linux, you have installation for Mac, and you also have installation for what? Windows. These are the processes. All right. So let's install for Linux because I'm running Linux. So open Linux. Now, all I need to do is just scroll down here, right? This is my architecture is 64 bits, all right, x86. Okay, so this is what I will do. I'll just copy this line. Wait, this line, just copy it. Copy. Let me show you why I copy. So this is what happened. They are downloading the zip file, right? They're downloading it. Then ordinarily, if I download this guy, it will just give me seal. Copy. Let me just show us what's happening here. Call. All right. So with call, what sort of rubbish is this? Okay. Let me run this guy. So I'm just going to download. Oh, should I put an L? Let me put an L. Dash capital L. Is it dash capital L dash capital O? Capital O. Okay, great. Now this is the command. Call dash capital O. All right. So this guy will download this guy for me. All right. Then I'll now come and unzip it. It's either unzip it or I change the name. So now this is what they've done on this script. So this is what they did here. Look at now. After downloading this path, right? They had to output this file. They output this file into this file. This option here is called output. So you're having two execution in one statement. Two execution in one statement. The first execution is downloading this file, which is this. The second execution is outputting the content of this file into this file. It's just like you're renaming it towards this guy. There, look at this name. This name. They now came down here, that same name, to do an unzip. After unzipping, there's a script file. Now what? Install that script file. Right? So that is a process. I just explained that guy now. So that's what we'll do now. This is what we'll do. I'll copy this guy. I've copied it now. So okay, let me do it one by one so you see it. First copy this. Copy. Come over here. Paste it. So let me remove the extra character. Okay. So enter. So it has been downloaded and renamed. You can see it has been downloaded and renamed to this guy, which we have here. The next step is now to unzip it. So let me copy that unzip part. Copy. Come over here. Unzip. I pasted it. All right. So it has been unzipped. So if I open, so I'll see a directory called AWS. All right. Now there's a script file called install. Let's check that. So if I check the content of that AWS, I should see a script file called what? Install. All right. So now they now run this script file. Copy this guy. Copy this guy. Copy. Then come over here. Paste it. And hit enter. Enter. What does it say? Okay, you can now, okay, it has been installed. It's saying that you can now run AWS dash dash versions. If I run AWS dash dash version, let's see if it has been updated. It has not, it has, it really has, but we can't see it. So I'll exit, and come back again. Now let's check AWS version. AWS dash dash version, sorry. So you see, we have been able to install version 2 with Python version 3, and the rest is history. All right. So this is how you get to install AWS CLI. All right. So if you're using Windows, you have to look for, okay, look for other options. So this is the only parts you need to do. You can forget about these parts, right? Don't go further. Just stick here. So if you're using Windows, similarly, you have to go through it and do your thing. All right? Do your thing. Perfect. So let me close this page. So now that we have installed AWS CLI, now the next step is on the AWS console, create an AWS access key for the intended user to authenticate with. So I'll go to my AWS console, right click, duplicate this guy. So I'll go to I am. All right. I'll click on I am. So I'll go to I am. Now I'll go to users. See, I already have a user which I want to use. I want to create access key for. Okay. So if you don't have a user, you can always create a user. Obviously, you know how to create a user, right? But now that I have a user, there's no need. So I'll just click on the user. Just click on the user. Then I'm going to go toward security credentials. I'll click on security credentials. Then I will scroll down. I'll go down. I'll get to what? Access keys. I'll create an access key. I'll click on what? Create access key. Now, the use case for this access key is for what? Is for command line interface. I want to use it alongside with what? AWS CLI. I'll select it and I will scroll. Then at the bottom here, which says confirmation. I understand about blah, 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 blah. I will check this box. Then I'm going to say what? Next. Description, tag, whatever. You can put anything here. Okay, as you can put anything there. Anything goes. Put anything there and click on what? Create access key. Now, the access key has been created. The access key has the access key itself and a secret access key. Okay? The access key and a secret access key. So with these two things, I should be able to authenticate to my AWS tenant. Now, it's two ways. It's either you keep these things safe or there's no need to keep it safe. All right. You can always delete it. And whenever you need to authenticate, you can create a new one. The reason is if that key that you're keeping safe gets into a wrong hand, that wrong person can actually do a lot of wrong things to you. If anybody gain access to either of these keys, you can actually gain access to my AWS environment, and you just be using my resources anyhow. All right. So make sure when you finish using it, it's either you deactivate it or you delete it. All right. So I'm going to show us that as well. So there's a .csv file you need to download. So once you download this file, let me show us the content of that file. Open. No thanks. So this is, let's see. Opening Omero, where is it? It's open now. It's open. It's open, Jerry. Okay, so here is access key and what? The secret key. All right. So there's no need to keep this guy. There's no need to keep this guy because you always delete it. All right. You always delete into trash. Okay. But the moment you click on done, you won't see this key again. The only thing you will see is the access key. You won't see the secret access key. The only thing you will see is what? Access key. So let's try it. Done. So it means that, yes, the access key. So you can't find the secret key because the secret key is secret. All right. So it means I can't use, if I had not downloaded this guy, it means I won't be able to use it again. So I'll come to actions and deactivate it. Deactivate. Then I need to delete it. There's no need because I don't have the secret key anymore. So I'll delete it. Copy this guy, come here and paste and delete. Deleted. Let me create a new one. So create access key. CLI. This guy. Next. Anything. PF. Anything as description. Create. So now I have the access key string and the secret key. I can always show it. I can always hide it. You show and you hide. All right. So now let's come back here now to our whiteboard. On the AWS console, create an access key for the intended user to authenticate with. Then you should configure your access keys using AWS. So let's go now to the terminal. So this is what I will do. So on my terminal, all right, I'm going to type AWS configure to authenticate with my AWS tenants. Bring in my shit. To authenticate with AWS tenants, all right, you need to type AWS configure. Okay, let's do that. So I'll hit enter. So this command is going to ask for the access key ID. I'll come over here. I'll copy access key ID. I'll come back. I'll paste it. I'll press enter. It's going to ask for the secret access key. I'll do the same thing. Copy, come over here, paste it, enter. It's going to ask for my region. My region is EU West 1. Enter. It's going to ask for the output format. Output format is JSON. Enter. At this stage, I have authenticated with what? My AWS account. How do I know? There's a command called STS. I don't know the acronym for that STS. Wait, let me check something now. What is AWS STS? Security token service. Okay. Security token service. As a web service that enables you to request temporary limited privilege credentials for users. Okay. Now I'm going to use the AWS STS, Security Token Service. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to use the AWS STS to get the identity, right? This is what I'll do. I'll say AWS STS gets dash caller identity. So I want to check the user that I am authenticated with. I want to check the user that I am authenticated with. So if I hit enter, it should show me that I am authenticated with what? Omero user. You can see it is Omero credentials. It is on the Omero user that we did what? We created what? The access key and what? The secret, which is created the access key. It is on this user guy, this username. That is why we are getting this guy with what? Security token service. Okay. So these are, you know, if you are actually authenticated to AWS or not. Now that we are connected, so I need to show us other basic things. All right. So whenever you run this AWS configure, all right, and you get authenticated, AWS is going to create a hidden file. That hidden file is called .aws. Let's go into that directory and see what's inside of that directory. So I'll say change directory .aws ll. So inside of this directory, I have two files. One is a config file and the other is credentials. So let's check them one after the other. So I'll use vim. I'll say config. Let's check. So config, you could see config, the kind of config I have is a default config where it only captures my region and the output, which we defined, which is JSON, right? So this is the content of what? Your config file. So now let's go out. Now let's check the next file, which is what? Credentials. Let's check. So this is where my credentials is actually defined. As you can see, I have that credential here. I have that credential here. So this is where, guys, AWS decided to come and save this file, right? So invariably, this thing is not even secure because anybody who gain access to this machine, right, will want to check out for this file. And once he gets this file, this secret, voila, you're gone, man. You're gone. All right. So yeah, you're gone. Okay. So the advice is if you're not using any access key anymore, you have to delete it. Delete it or you deactivate. All right. Perfect. Now let's go out. So those are the things, the basic things I needed to show us. Now I can now start creating resources on AWS. I can do anything I feel like doing on AWS. Let's get started, guys. So from here, I can say, okay, let me list the number of buckets I have. AWS S3, S3 LS. I have this bucket. I can create buckets. I will say, let me check. AWS S3. Let's check for help. AWS S3 dash help. AWS S3 help. Okay, AWS S3 API. Okay. I need to create a bucket. Okay, create bucket, AWS S3 API. AWS S3. Okay, I'm coming on. Coming, guys. Okay. So I'll say AWS S3 API. Create buckets. Create buckets. Okay, dash. Let me see what's there. Let me see. Create buckets. My buckets. My C5 BKT. BKT. Let me see this command fly. Oh, create buckets. Let me see. Let me see. What did I do? Okay, create buckets. There's no dash dash. Okay, create buckets. Okay, create buckets, bucket name. Create buckets, buckets. Let's see, bucket dash name. I should get ABC. It's not there. Dash buckets, buckets. Oh, okay, dash dash buckets, dash dash buckets. What is this saying? Compatible for the region. Okay, okay. I need to specify the region. Okay. My region is dash dash region is US East one. Let me see. Okay, guys. Now, maybe you want to ask why is it US East one? So, despite that, my my region is EU West one. All right. Okay. So, why creating buckets? You must use a global region, right? Because S3 is a global service, right? It's a global service. So now I want to show something. You can see now there are different services that are global. You might be asked this thing in an interview. Can you name two or three services that are global? They are not specific to any region, right? They are not tied to any region. They are not region bound, right? These services are not region bound. Example of these services is IAM. You can see here, IAM is a global service. Another example of a global service is your S3, right? S3. Let's check it out. So S3, I'm going to get that my guy is global. You can see. Now, another example of this global service. Let me check Route 53. I'm not sure if, but let's check though. Let's check. I think Route 53. Yes, Route 53 is also a global service. So take note, guys, you'll be asked these simple basic questions in an interview. Can you list two or three global services on AWS? You need to know it. Okay, so where are we? So I've created this bucket. So let's check. Let me go and check here. You can see the bucket is just there, seated, looking at me. Here is the bucket. Okay, here's the bucket. Okay, great. Yes, so actually, if you want to target this region, there's a command you need to override. You need to use to override this EU West one. EU is sorry, US is one. That command, I don't know that command. I don't want to let me check how to create AWS S3 bucket using CLI. Let me see, let me show something. Let me check. Let me check. I'm on S3. Let's check. So you can actually override that that region. Object ownership. Let me check. You can actually no object block enable this. There's an option. Create bucket configuration. Information. Okay, locations constraint. Wait to I think I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. 1 second. I'm coming. Mm. Okay. Okay. So if we need to do it other than that region, region. Okay. So yeah. So create buckets with this flag, create buckets configuration. So you have to use location constraint is equal to this. So this is the command, guys. All right. So let me copy this guy, copy, copy, come over here. Okay. So let's do it like this. So I will say AWS S3 API, creates dash buckets, dash dash, specify your bucket name. I will say Toby BKT. Then your region, dash dash region. So I need to put it in EU West 1, right? Instead of the default US East 1, all right? Then I'm using this flag, dash dash creates bucket configuration. It has to be location constraint, location constraints. Location constraint equal to EU West 1. So with this command, this should work, right? So this now, I've created this bucket to be buckets in a different region other than the default global regions. If I refresh, you will see that this Toby guy is being created in what? EU West 1 instead of this default region, right? So this is how you play around with, all right, buckets wherever. So I can also delete, I can do anyhow, okay? I can do anyhow. So if I need to delete as well, AWS S3 API, okay, S3 list. Let's list these buckets. So the number of buckets I have, there are 3 now. I have this one, and this one. So I need to delete them now. AWS S3, US3, then remove buckets. I think RB, then the buckets URL S3 // to be BKT. Enter. Remove buckets. If I come over here and I refresh, I should see that that guy is gone. So let me delete this other one too. Same thing. I'll say my C5 BKT. Enter. And Vala is gone. If I refresh, and it's gone. So this is how, all right, you play with AWS CLI. So if you want to see all the services you can set up, so you just say AWS, the AWS help, the AWS help, right? Enter. Not yet, not yet, not yet. So there's a way this thing should have displayed it for me. There's a way I want it. AWS services, AWS EC2, EC2 help, right? So I think they can't display them now. I think for display them in a command way. All right. So with this now, available commands, all right, you can create EC2s, right? Just know the service name, AWS, the service name, and use the help. You can always create anything you need to create. All right. So let me see. Creates what? Creates capacity, creates ABCDE, creates image, creates instance, connects, creates instance events, creates key pair. So if you don't see what you're looking for, you can always Google it. All right. How do you create an EC2 instance? Come here. How to create AWS EC2, all right, using CLI. Okay, using CLI. Great. How to use AWS CLI to create EC2 instance. Open this. Let's check. What do we have? Okay, you see what people have done. So you can play around with the CLI. So there it is. AWS EC2 create this creating security group. Group name is this. Description is this. Okay, this is how to create security group. Then authorize security group ingress. This is for the ingress. Then create your SSH key pair. AWS EC2 create key pair. Okay. Then AWS CLI command to create EC2. Then here's a full command. So AWS EC2 run instance. Image ID is the image ID. The count is 1. Instance type is T2 micro. The key name is which you created upstairs. The security group ID, you have to pick the security group ID, which you created at the top there. The subnet ID, which you've already created. Block device mapping, device name, blah, 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 blah. Once you do all of these, then you should have your EC2 created and running on the cloud, right? So with AWS CLI, you can actually, all right, do a lot of things, all right? Because you're already connected, authenticated to your AWS account, okay? So you can do a lot of things. So far, so good, guys. I think that's all about AWS CLI, all right? Because we're going to use it a lot. We're going to use it a lot. So that's why I deem it necessary, all right, to put us through, all right, about AWS CLI. At this juncture, guys, is there any query? Is there any questions? So that's okay. Since there's no question, I would love to call this session a day. All right, I'll call this session a day and see you guys tomorrow. So when we meet tomorrow, we are starting off the hook. Okay, with what? Git version control. Right? Version control using Git. All right. So yeah, so tomorrow is the beginning of the proper journey into DevOps. So you come to see that everything we will be talking about in DevOps will be based on Linux. I need to do Git. I have to use a Linux box. I have to install Git. I have to run commands. All right. So these things, most of the time, I'll be running basic commands and commands that are native, all right, that are native to the tool you are working with. Okay, you're working with. So yeah, guys. So thank you for your time, and see you tomorrow. Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Stop recording.